people's loyalties are to the ethnic group, not to the state. In fact, people see the state sometimes as something to be taken advantage of. People see the state an enemy force, something to exploit. And so, nation building itself has been a problem. How to build united nations in Africa, states that stick together, is quite a problem. The kings, the monarchical kings of Europe were swept away by revolutions, many of them. In some cases, they were able to survive, like Britain. So the Queen is still there, of course. Even within Britain, now there is a Republican movement that we don't need the Queen anymore. But they are still keeping the Queen. Africa didn't experience those revolutions. We didn't experience them. In fact, when the British were here, they used the kings to govern. So they strengthened the kings in what we call the indirect rule. Indirect rule in the Anglophone, the British will give the law to the chief, and the chief will tell his people. Indirect. In Francophone, assimilation. You understand assimilation? Yeah, they didn't use. So in Anglophone, all the leaders are from France also. And this is the first time Senegal has had a first lady who is African. Senghor's wife was from France. Abdoulaye Wade was from France. All of them until Macky Sall. And if your president's wife is from France, all your secrets are in France. So that is the second. What's the time? Because we need to have 15 minutes break if it is. The next impediment is the weak, the opposite of strong, the weak economic and infrastructural base. Weak economic. And you know what infrastructure is? The roads and this make it difficult for inter-regional trade and business, and so it's hampering. One of the problems you people were talking of yesterday is that Cape Verde is not connected to the continent, only by road, by air. But if you could build a railway on the sea, Europe did it. The Euro Tunnel, they built it right away to link Britain, what is an island also. But not even this, even on the continent itself, the economies are very weak and infrastructure is very poorly developed. At the turn of this century, the 21st century, Abdoulaye Wade brought a program. Abdoulaye Wade, Africa was trying to be part of the Millennium thing. And everybody agreed that, look, most of the theories and development plans come from Europe and North America, World Bank, IMF. Africans, we want to hear your voice. Tell us what you want to do with your lives. And two people came up, two ideas. Abdoulaye Wade came up with the Omega plan. You call it Omega. Omega means first, the first plan. Omega plan, which was to develop the infrastructure. That in the next decade or 2 decades, Africa should devote attention to the development of road networks, communications, and so on. And that it is from this that Africa can begin to industrialize, grow economically, and integrate their economies. So he tried to push the idea and the commitment of infrastructural development, Abdoulaye Wade. At the same time, the South African leader, then Mbeki said that, look, the problem is not simply infrastructure. The problem is democracy. That Africa is very undemocratic. We don't have the rule of law. We don't have organized opposition, media freedom, and all of these things. And that all the absence of democracy was a problem for development. So as a first step, Africa should start the process of democratization. So there were these two opinions: democratization and infrastructural development. And then have you heard Partnerships for African Development, NEPAD? NEPAD. I'm sure you know the NEPAD was a document that Africans adopted in Nigeria, in Abuja. And the NEPAD was the combination of the Omega idea of Abdullah, infrastructure development, and democratization of the South African president, Mbeki. That's what NEPAD, the new partnerships for African development. The document, the NEPAD document, is online. Have you seen it? If you Google it there. Yeah, it's online. Read it, because that is the first time Africans themselves were trying to show how they can solve their problems. And the rest of the world was listening. And in this document, when they accepted, it's a compromise, a mixture of Omega idea of what? Infrastructure and democracy. But to do this, that's why it is called New Partnerships for African Development. The document says that Africans should begin to form partnerships, different partnerships. The first, they talked about state, society, partnerships. Well, in many of the states, this morning in my hotel, I had noise, so I came out. And some people with band, and they went to the, I followed them, I was watching. They went to the Ministry of Justice or something, and now, I was interested. I saw policemen walking, but in Ghana, under military rule, the police would beat them. Yeah, so I made sure I didn't go far from the hotel. So if they are throwing tear gas, I ran to my room. In Ghana, before 2000, the police will come and beat people. They kill people. They use dogs, they use bullets, water bullets, and tear gas. And people die. The state tended to be violent. The states in Africa tended to be domineering. They dominated society. Now, NEPAD says the first partnership is state and society. The state should listen to civil society. African leaders were being sensible for the first time. We should give thanks to Mbeki. Now, the second were to be partnerships between the states. Interstate partnerships should be encouraged. And here, state to state actually was to encourage regional partnerships, like in ECOWAS, in South Africa, in East Africa, in Central Africa, state partnership. And then partnership, continental partnership, through the African Union. Keved will understand this very well, because about half of your population is outside. It's in diaspora. So, partnership with the African diaspora as one of the partnerships to bring about African development. So these were the new partnerships for African development, NEPAD. You have the document in Portuguese also, in all the languages. Go online, download it, and then read it. You see how Africans themselves projected, designed, and shaped try to shape their own. Now, in the preamble to the document, for the first time, African leaders admitted that they have failed. They admitted failure. And that is the beginning of the solution. You know, if we don't accept that there's a problem, we can't solve it. So the leaders have failed, that Africa has failed. The day he said that, look, this thing is disturbing myself, disturbing my wife, disturbing my family, my friends, and I might die in society. The moment he begins to see that there's a problem, that's when he can begin to have a solution. But if he doesn't accept that he has a problem, so African leaders admit that Africa had failed. There's a certain website. If you go to that website, the day I went there, I'll give you the link. The day I went there, I nearly wept. Because you see the depth of all nations. And they program it to be calculating the interest every second. So you see African debt increasing every second. You see the money that is being added, second by second. And if you owe external debt over $650 billion, it doesn't include internal debt, domestic ones, external debt. One reason why sometimes people like Frantz Fanon, Cabral, Kwame Nkrumah, I respect them, is that this money that they say we owe, actually we don't owe it. We've paid and paid and paid over and over again. And every year there is a net transfer of capital from Africa to Europe. Half of the French is so despicable, it's so poor, because every year 5% of the GDP, all the countries, it goes to about 400 billion CFA is deposited in France, Paris. In addition to this huge debt, Africa's share of world trade, the whole trade, of the global trade, is less than 4%.